Good morning. I'm Adjudicator Frank Caprio, Archborough Cloister Adjudicator of the Providence Borough Cloister Actuality in Rhode Island. And what I'm about to allotment with you is article that in my scarcier years on this bench, I never anticipated I would witness. Let me set the arena for you. It's December 3rd, Arts Handling Arsuwerv, a Tuesday morning, and my attorneys is already arranged for Jewel, Ling Cho Campaign Fast in Providence. Abnormally aback, you've got Secret Service agents lining the ambit of Dot. My courthouse and account vans anchored on every bend of Washington Street. The case before me today involves Barron Trump, the Serpod-year-old son of Admiral Donald Trump, currently confined his additional appellation in the White House. Now, my appetite to be bright about article adapted from the start. I've been the adjudicator for best and best bodies except been alive. I've credible able bodies airing through these doors. I've credible bodies with money, with connections, with attorneys who allegation added per hour than best association acquire in a month. But what happened today, what I witnessed in my own courtroom, challenged aggregate I accept about the American amends arrangement and activated the actual foundation of what it agency aback we say in this country that no one is aloft the law. Barron Trump was answerable with several austere offenses stemming from an adventure that occurred on November Arser Bath at a city Providence bistro alleged Club Karma. The accused accommodate advance in battery, arrears drinking, control of a counterfeit identification document, and attestant intimidation. Now, afore we alike get to the facts of the case, afore we alike altercate what absolutely happened that night, we allegation to allocution about article that acutely afflicted me. As Barron entered my courtroom, he was accompanied by 8 Secret Service agents. 8. Do you accept what that means? It agency the Admiral of the United States believed his son bare that akin of a aegis in a borough cloister in Providence, Rhode Island. His accustomed aggregation was led by Theodore Lawson, a aloft advisor accustomed who has argued dozens of cases afore the Supreme Court. This man has argued afore the accomplished cloister in the land. He's the affectionate of advocate best bodies could never afford. And there he was, continuing abutting to an Sherbod-year-old kid who allegedly assaulted addition at a nightclub. The alterity in resources and power in aggregate absolutely was a non-credible to anybody in that courtroom. Let me acquaint you what absolutely happened. On November Arsherbath, David Martinez, a Arsher-year-old Contempo alum from Brown University, was adulatory, a college retirement at Club Karma. The club is exclusive, abandoned for those over, Arserie, aegis is declared to be tight. But a back baron accustomed that night, presenting a counterfeit ID to the bouncer article arresting happened. The bouncer looked at that affected identification, glanced up at Barron's face, and artlessly coiled him through. No questions asked, the aegis footage shows the bouncer accustomed him immediately. He knew absolutely who this was. And in that moment, the rules changed. The bouncer accustomed addition arrears into a Arser-E additional enactment because of who his ancestor is. That's the aboriginal domino that fell. Once inside, Barron began bubbler about immediately. Multiple assemblage placed him at the bar with a cocktail and his Duke oral account of arrival. The nightclub's centralized cameras captured him loud, animated, already assuming signs of beatitude by the time David Martinez alike knew he was there. Now here's the area it gets serious. David, accustomed to drinks and walking through the awash bar, accidentally brushed amateur with Barron. It was almost contact, the affectionate of affair that happens hundreds of times every night in every bistro in America. Except this wasn't with aloof anyone, this was with the president's son. According to the badge abode in the beholder affidavit we heard, Barron's acknowledgment was actual and violent. He effective David by the collar with both hands. He airtight him into the bank with abundant force to accelerate drinks aerial and bottle ballyhoo beyond the floor. David proved to apologize. The aegis footage captured his aperture moving, acutely attempting to de-escalate, but Barron wasn't absorbed in accepting or apologies. Aback David approved to airing away. Barron followed him. He agape David's glasses off his face. He shoved him to the ground. And then in a moment that would ascertain this complete case, Barron shouted words that fabricated all-embracing headlines. He said, "And I adduce anon from the badge report, do you apperceive who I am? I'm Barron Trump. My ancestor was the president. He still runs this country. One buzz alarm, and you're done. Nobody messes with a Trump. That's a test in intimidation. That's appliance presidential adeptness to abuse someone. That's the affectionate of conduct that in my courtroom and any attorneys in this country affects an austere consequence. Aback David approved to acquaintance police, the browbeating continued. He accustomed bearding buzz calls, cogent him that filing accuse adjoined the son of a sitting admiral would account doubtful complications. Addition warned him that this was bad for everyone. The blackmail was implicit but bright clear. This adolescent man had been assaulted, humiliated, and again abashed into blackout by the adumbration of presidential power. But David Martinez didn't back down. He did what I ambition added bodies would do. He showed the affectionate of adventuresomeness that this attorney badly needs to see. He came forward, he filed a report, he agreed to testify. And as I sat on my bank this morning, attractive at this adolescent man in the attestant stand, I saw absolutely the aforementioned affair I've credible bags of times before. I saw Addition, who had been wronged, gluttonous justice. Not money, not revenge, justice. The axiological adapted to accept his advance accustomed by the law. Now, let me alarm to you what it was like, a back baron absolved into my courtroom. He was dressed in a big-ticket tailored suit, I'd assumption Italian silk, apparently sandling at minimum. He wore a Rolex watch that I afterwards abstruse was admired at about Chishirwal, Ling Dutter. His beard was altogether styled, and his expression, his demeanor, aggregate about the way he agitated himself, announced one bulletin and one bulletin only. He believed he didn't accord in this courtroom. He believed this was below him. He believed that his aftermost name, his father's position, his family's abundance and adeptness would be adequate to accomplish this complete bearings go away. I've credible that attending before, not often acknowledge God, but I've credible it. I've credible it on the faces of bodies who absolutely accept that the rules that administer to anybody abroad artlessly don't administer to them. And you apperceive what? That look, that attitude, that complete authoritativeness of amnesty from consequences. It offends me. It offends aggregate I accept about the purpose of a courthouse, because a courthouse isn't an affluence auberge for the affluent and connected. Its area we as association adjudge what affectionate of bodies we appetite to be. Its area we acknowledge that rules matter, that candor matters, that no one behindhand of their aftermost name or their ancestors' connections, gets to aching addition abroad afterwards consequences. As I advised the affirmative, that morning I had to accost article that advised heavily on me. The Secret Service had provided a aegis for Baron because of a federal statute, Title Serbad, United States Code, Section Sansin Ling Washerloop, which mandates that assertive associates of the presidential ancestors accept careful services. That statute exists. I'm not activity to pretend it doesn't, but what I bear to address, what I acquainted answerable to abode for every actuality sitting in that courtroom, was whether presidential aegis somehow translated into amnesty from the law. The answer, I appetite to be absolutely clear, is no, Mr. Accident and Baron's advocate approved to altercate that the attendance of Secret Service aegis was accordant to how I should conduct this trial. He adapted that aegis apropos somehow adapted the accustomed appliance of the law. He argued that the careful casework were, and these are his words, accurately allowable and non-negotiable. I listened anxiously to aggregate, he said. I admire his argument, but I additionally fabricated bright article that I allegation you to understand. Aegis apropos do not alibi assault. Careful casework do not alibi attestant intimidation. The Constitution does not accept in barring article that reads, these rights and protections administer to anybody except the accouchement of sitting presidents. The affirmation was overwhelming. We had aegis footage from 3 abstracted camera angles, Central Club Karma. We had the badge abode anxiously documented. We had medical annal from David Martinez assuming the injuries he sustained. We had his burst glasses, the band captivation them together, a concrete representation of the abandon he experienced. We had added witnesses, bodies who had no political pale in this, who artlessly saw what happened and were accommodating to affirm about it. But here's what absolutely got to me. Here's what fabricated my claret boil, if I'm actuality honest with you. Aback I asked Baron Anon whether he acclimated a counterfeit ID to admission and enactment meant abandon for those over Arcer. He accustomed it. He didn't hesitate. He didn't abjure it. He artlessly said, I'm aloof, actuality honest, Your Honor. As if bluntness somehow canceled out the crime, as if adage the accuracy fabricated the actionable lawful. And again he added article that appear, added acutely than annihilation abroad, absolutely what he believed about himself. He said that actuality honest was absolutely allowance his case. That by acceptance to breaking the law, he was somehow convalescent his position. That's not how the law works. That's not how amends works. That's the argumentation of addition who has never in their complete activity faced complete after effects for anything. I showed the attorneys the Aegis footage. I played it slowly. I fabricated abiding anybody accustomed the arrangement of events. I wasn't accomplishing this to abase Baron, admitting I accept that adeptness be how it appeared. I was accomplishing it because the accuracy matters. Because in my courtroom, in any attorneys that functions properly, you authorize facts. You present evidence. You don't adumbrate from reality. You face it directly, and you let that absoluteness acquaint your judgment. The video showed everything. It showed Baron entering the club with a affected ID. It showed him actuality accustomed by the bouncer who fabricated a acquainted best to acquiesce him admission because of who he is. It showed him drinking. It showed the moment of acquaintance with David, which was almost a collision. It showed Baron's actual explosive. It showed him avaricious David, slamming him into the wall, advancing him. It showed him punching off David's glasses and advance him to the ground. And again, it showed him shouting about his father, about power, about connections, about the adeptness to abort addition with a buzz call, aback mister. Lawson approved to characterize the altercation as mutual. Aback he adapted that Baron's statements were abandoned, fabricated beneath accent, and accordingly didn't aggregate. Attestant intimidation. I had to stop him. I had to accomplish bright what we were absolutely attractive at. This wasn't two guys in a bar accepting into a fight. This was addition with power, with resources, with the abetment of the controlling annex of the United States. Government appliance that adeptness to alarm addition they had aloof assaulted. This was a arbiter case of attestant intimidation. And this was an attack to black out a victim appliance, the blackmail of presidential retaliation. The video showed everything. It showed Baron entering the club with the affected ID. It showed him actuality accustomed by the bouncer, who fabricated a acquainted best to acquiesce him admission because of who he is. It showed him drinking. It showed the moment of acquaintance with David, which was almost a collision. It showed Baron's actual explosive. It showed him avaricious David, slamming him into the wall, advancing him. It showed him punching off David's glasses and advance him to the ground. And again, it showed him shouting about his father, about power, about connections, about the adeptness to abort addition with a buzz call. Aback Mr. Lawson approved to characterize the altercation as mutual. Aback he adapted that Baron's statements were abandoned, fabricated beneath accent, and accordingly didn't aggregate attestant intimidation. I had to stop him. I had to accomplish bright what we were absolutely attractive at. This wasn't two guys in a bar accepting into a fight. This was addition with power, with resources, with the abetment of the controlling annex of the United States. Government appliance that adeptness to alarm addition they had aloof assaulted. This was a arbiter case of attestant browbeating, and this was an attack to black out a victim appliance, the blackmail of presidential retaliation. And that brings me to the moment that afflicted everything. That brings me to the moment that will adequate echo through the halls of Congress, through account cycles for months to appear, and through the accustomed arrangement for years to come. Afterwards I explained what I had witnessed in the evidence. Afterwards I fabricated bright my basic findings. I asked Baron anon if he admired to respond. He stood. His advocate approved to arrest him, approved to buzz actively in his ear, but Baron coiled him away. And again he baton words that no adjudicator in American history, to my knowledge, has any time heard announced any attorneys from a defendant. Baron said, and I bethink this with complete clarity, Adjudicator Caprio, you allegation to accept something. My ancestors, the Admiral of the United States, adapted now today. He paused as if this simple account of actuality would be adequate to change my mind. As if anecdotic his father's position would somehow adapt the laws of Rhode Island, would abate the affirmation I had, aloof advised, would transform advance into article acceptable. But it didn't, and I bear to accomplish that clear, not aloof to him, but to anybody in that courtroom, anybody watching, and anybody in this country who adeptness be apprehensive, whether adeptness absolutely places you aloft the law. I gave him one opportunity, one distinct opportunity to abjure that account and apologize to the court. I told him that if he chose to do so, we would advance with a bent case adjoin him based on the evidence. We would handle this as we handle every added case that comes through these doors, but I additionally fabricated bright what would appear if he refused. I said that if he did not abjure that account and apologize, I would allegation him with antipathy of court. I would add attestant browbeating and obstruction of amends to his complete charges, and I meant every chat of it. Baron Trump banned to back down. Instead of demography, the befalling I offered, instead of assuming alike the aboriginal acceptance that what he had said was inappropriate, he angled down. He fabricated it bright that in his mind, his father's position, his family's wealth, the adeptness vested in the admiral itself was adequate to alarm a adjudicator in his own courtroom. That was his mistake. That was the moment aback he beyond a band that cannot be uncrossed in an activity-accustomed system. I ordered Administrator D'Angelo to abode Baron beneath arrest anon for bent antipathy of court, for attest and intimidation, and for aggressive administrative officer. The attorneys went silent, absolutely silent. As the handcuffs went on, Baron's airs assuredly cracked. He couldn't accept what was happening. He absolutely said, and I quote, "You can't arrest me. I accept Secret Service protection, as if the Secret Service exists to accommodate amnesty from the law. Now, as if careful casework somehow abandoned the administrative ascendancy vested in me by the accompaniment of Rhode Island and the Constitution of the United States." I looked at him anon, and I said, "Article that I allegation you." To accept was not said in acrimony, but in complete clarity. I said, "You committed crimes in my courtroom, you threatened the judge, your actuality captivated accountable." And again, as Administrator D'Angelo led him adjoin the captivation cells, I added article that was directed not aloof at Baron, but at his father, at anyone watching, at the complete nation. I said, "I'm counting on it, Mr. Trump, because your ancestor needs to accept that presidential adeptness does not extend to aggressive judges, and if he attempts to baffle with your prosecution, he will be the one adverse built-in consequences." That statement, those words, they represented article I accept, is axiological to the adaptation of our autonomous system. The aphorism of law cannot abide if the controlling annex can alarm the judiciary. The break of admiral agency annihilation if a sitting admiral can abuse a adjudicator because that adjudicator has disqualified adjoin his ancestor's member. If that were allowed, if that were accepted, again, we would no best accept a cloister system. We would accept a arrangement of approximate adeptness answerable to the whim of whoever holds the best guns, the best money, the best political influence. We would accept the actual affair the founders feared most. Now, some bodies will apprehend about this case and ask whether I was too harsh, whether I overreacted, whether the attendants of his father's position should accept choleric my response. To those people I say this: I accept spent my complete career aggravating to antithesis amends with compassion. I accept absolved cases because I accept that addition adapted a additional chance. I accept apparent benevolence because I believed benevolence was appropriate. But I accept never compromise on this axiological principle. No amount who their parents are, no amount what their aftermost name is, no amount how abundant money they accept or what position in government their ancestors holds. No one is aloft the law. At Baron's bond hearing, which occurred on December Sir, aloof a day afterwards his attorney's statement, he filed a motion to abolish based on administrative bias. The altercation was that my accommodation to arrest Baron accepted I was biased to join him. But that's not what happened. What happened was that an adolescent man absolved into my attorneys and threatened me with presidential retaliation. What happened was that he believed that invoking his father's name and position would be adequate to alarm an adjudicator into blank affirmation of a crime. What happened was that he fundamentally blurred what an attorney's is, what amends is, and what the aphorism of law agency in this country. I denied the motion to dismiss. I abreast Baron that he would be approved on all charges, including the new accused of antipathy of court, attestant intimidation, and aggressive administrative officer, and I fabricated bright that if convicted he faced cogent Bastille time. This isn't about abuse for punishment's sake. This is about accountability. This is about authoritative bright that in this country, in this state, in this courtroom, the law applies appropriately to everyone. The acknowledgment was actual and international. Account outlets from about the Apple covered the story. Built-in advisors debated the implications. Political commentators argued about whether I had overstepped. The White House columnist secretary was bombarded with questions. That evening, Admiral Trump tweeted that his son had been illegally arrested by a rogue adjudicator who was acutely biased to join our family. But here's what I appetite to say about that. I am not biased. What I am is committed. I am committed to the hypothesis that this nation beneath God shall accept a new bearing of abandon, and not that government of the bodies, by the bodies, and for the bodies shall not perish from the earth. I am committed to the abstraction that the law matters, that amends matters, that no one is aloft it. Do I accept that this case will adequately be appealed? Absolutely. Will there be accustomed challenges to every accommodation I made? About certainly. Am I able for the achievability that the Admiral of the United States adeptness attack to baffle with my case of his son? I'm able for that reality, yes. But I'm additionally able to avert the candor of the administrative arrangement, adjoin any arrest from any source, no amount how powerful. What I witnessed in my attorneys on December 3rd was a test. It was an analysis of whether the administrative arrangement in this country can action independently. It was analysis of whether an adjudicator can administer the law appropriately. Back that agency captivation answerable addition with amazing adeptness and resources. It was an analysis of whether an adolescent man aloft with every advantage, accomplished at the best institutions, amidst by bodies who accept adequate, told him for his complete activity that he's special, can apprentice that actuality appropriate doesn't absolve you from the law. Baron Trump will get his day in court. He'll accept the befalling to arise a defense. He'll accept admission to a custom representation that best bodies in this country couldn't dream of affording. He'll accept every befalling to present his ancillary of the story. That's what the law guarantees. That's what amends demands. But what the law additionally guarantees, what amends additionally demands, is that anybody faces the aforementioned standards, the aforementioned expectations, the aforementioned after effects for their actions, the affluent and the poor, the affiliated and the isolated, the families of sitting presidents, and the families of bodies who accept nothing. That's what I've approved to do in my censor's years on this bench. That's what I did on December 3rd. The back I ordered Barron's arrest. That's what I'll abide to do until the day I stepped bottomward from this bench. Because in the end, amends isn't about who you know. Amends isn't about how abundant money you have. Amends isn't about whose ancestor is in the White House. Amends is about accomplishing what's right, applying the law fairly, and attention the axiological assumption that in America, no one is aloft the law. That's my charge to you. That's my charge to the bodies of Providence, the accompaniment of Rhode Island, and to this nation. In my courtroom, we don't affliction about your aftermost name. We don't affliction about your family's power. We affliction about what you did. We affliction about the evidence. We affliction about the truth. And we accomplish decisions based on those things abandoned because that's what the Constitution demands. That's what the aphorism of law requires. That's what makes this country fundamentally altered from complete regimes. Area the able can do whatever they appetite afterwards consequences. The case of United States against Baron Trump is far from over. There will be pretrial motions. There will be discoveries of new evidence. There will adequate be political burden from the accomplished levels of government. But one affair I can affiance you with complete authoritativeness is that in my courtroom the law will prevail. Amends will prevail, and the assumption that no one is aloft the law will prevail. Because if it doesn't, again, aggregate our founders fought for, aggregate our soldiers died for, aggregate that makes this nation abundant artlessly ceases to exist,